Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to show you how to set your bike up to build your own Power Commander fuel map. The Only Rider is not a professional mechanic and is not responsible for any personal injury or vehicle damage that may result from individuals attempting the repair shown in this video. You have been warned. Try at your own risk. Now, in order to do that, you need to know 3 values at any given instant in time. You need to know your RPM, your throttle position, and what the fuel mixture currently is. The RPMs are easy because you have a tachometer on the motorcycle. The throttle position is a little bit more tricky, but it's still not that hard. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And then lastly, the hardest thing is you're going to have to install an air-fuel ratio gauge so that you can physically see whether your mixture is rich or lean to be able to turn it up or down. For starters, we're going to start with the throttle position sensor. So you're going to want to get out your trusty, handy-dandy, horribly antiquated garage laptop and go ahead and hook that into the USB port on your Power Commander. This video is not meant to be a tutorial on how to use the Power Commander software. I'm going to assume that you at least already know the basics of how to use it, and how to send and retrieve a map from your Power Commander, and how to adjust the cells. For this video, I'm just going to show you how you can use the Power Commander software to make marks on your handlebar so that you know what the different throttle positions are. When you first turn the key on in your ignition, for the first split second, power is sent to the Power Commander and it communicates with the computer, but it's only for a second or two, and then the Power Commander shuts off and disconnects from the computer. That's because your bike only sends power to it for a second or two when you first turn the key on, and then it disables power to it until you start the engine, which is why you can only really send and retrieve maps to your Power Commander while your bike is running. But one way you can check your throttle positions without having to start your bike and just bounce it off the rev limiter the whole time is you can just kind of stand here like this with your software up and turn the key on or off, holding the throttle at different positions, and see what percentage of throttle it's showing on the screen. And then you can just take some masking tape and just put on here and put on there, and just, you know, something as simple as just lines with a Sharpie or something that you can see with lines where your throttle is at in your GoPro when you're riding on the road. So for example, with the throttle all the way down, it should be reading at 0, so we turn the key on and we see 0% throttle for the first split second, and then it kicks back off. But that's all we needed to know. So we know that 0 is actually 0, so you could put some, again, you could put some masking tape on there, and you could write a 0 mark here and here, and then you could hold it, say maybe this far open, maybe like that, and then hold it there and turn the key on again. And we're at 63% throttle. So you could make a mark there for about 60% throttle. And we're going to pull the throttle all the way open, and that should be 100%. And it's 100%. Looks like it needs to be adjusted a little bit. And you can pretty much just keep doing that to find the major throttle percentages that you see on the graph in the Power Commander. You can keep doing that and make marks so you know whereabouts at the throttle that you're in those positions when you're riding. Now that you know what your RPMs are and what your throttle position is, now you need to know what your air-fuel ratio is. Unfortunately, these old school EFI bikes did not have any oxygen sensors in them already. They hadn't gotten to that point yet, so you're unfortunately going to have to buy a kit with an oxygen sensor in it that will allow you to install it into the exhaust to be able to read what your air-fuel ratio is. And this is the kit that I used. It is by AEM. I will put a link in the description, and in that kit you get the air-fuel ratio gauge. This little metal bracket doesn't come with it. I put that on myself to mount it to the bike, so you just get the gauge portion of it. You will also get an O2 sensor along with it. You will also get a data cable that connects to the sensor and to the gauge unit itself. And then you will also get a power and data logging cable. In this case, we're not going to use the data logging wires because we're not using a data logger, nor have I ever used one. I don't know how. So if you want to use a data logger, you have to find a YouTube video somewhere else that shows you how to do that. The only 2 wires we're going to use is we're going to use the red wire and the black wire, and that just supplies power to the unit. And again, this plugs into the gauge. You don't have to worry about getting these mixed up because these are different sizes and each one will only go into its own port, so it's impossible for you to get them plugged into the wrong one. The kit also comes with this bung which you have to install into your exhaust yourself. You have to get a step drill bit, you got to drill the hole in your exhaust, you got to put that in and weld it in. If you don't have a welder or don't have access to a welder, you might be able to get away with just using some high temperature JB weld. I'm not sure how long it will last. It might last a few months, it might last a few years, but if you don't have access to a welder, that's really your only other chance. You just got to make sure it's the high temperature JB weld. And there are a couple of things you will need that don't come with this kit. However, you can see here I have crimped on this little gadget here. This unfortunately does not come with the kit, but you will need it, so you have to buy this separately. This is called an AFR circuit, and it's basically an expansion slot for fuse boxes. It turns one fused slot, one circuit, into two circuits. If I remove this fuse here, you can see that there are now two circuits in here, and this end plugs into the fuse box, turning one into two. You're also going to need a 5 amp automotive fuse for this kit to put in there. You just got to make sure you get the standard blade type. There's different kinds of blades. There's mini blades. You need to get the standard blade. You're also going to need one of these. This is a zinc plug that you can put in the bung in the exhaust when you don't have the O2 sensor in there, because you don't want a gaping hole in your exhaust if you remove that. So you need a plug to be able to put in the hole when you're not using the system. That unfortunately does not come with the kit, so you got to buy that separately as well. So you got to buy the plug separately, you got to buy the AFR circuit separately, and you got to buy a 5 amp fuse separately. And again, I'll put links to all of that in the description. Okay, now I'm going to give you a very quick rundown on how this system gets set up to be functional. I'm not going to show you how I ran it down underneath the bike or anything. I'm not going to do all that. You can figure out how you want to run it yourself. But the cables, I think I ran underneath the gas tank and down behind this panel, you know, back and forth, because you need to run one cable from the unit, which obviously you're going to put somewhere up here in your dash where you can see it. You run one cable from there to the battery, and then the other cable you run from there down to where your O2 sensor is, which in this case I mounted my O2 sensor underneath here because it was the only place I could find where there would be clearance where it wouldn't get hit by anything. So to start, you install your O2 sensor. After you've installed the bung and the exhaust, you just thread it in. After you thread in the O2 sensor, you're going to want to run your cabling. I think I ran mine back behind this piece here, back behind the brake cylinder, up underneath this cover, and I think I left this clip here underneath this cover because it was a good place to hide this huge clip, and I left it in there. That way I could just pull this cover off and unhook it when I did want it to be hooked up, and then put the cover back on. Now again, you're going to want to rig up some kind of a bracket or something so that you can mount your gauge up here. I just put this little angled piece of steel on here so that I could attach it to the bolt that's right underneath there, underneath the plastic, and I could slip it just like that and bolt it down, and it would sit right there on the dash. Then you hook up the O2 sensor, which again would be tucked underneath here somewhere. Go ahead and plug the O2 sensor cable into the gauge. Now take your power and data cable and go ahead and plug that into the unit. And again, I already spliced an AFR circuit onto this, but when you buy this kit, it's just going to have two wires like this that just terminate. So you're going to have to crimp one of these on there to go to the negative of the battery, and you're going to have to crimp an AFR circuit onto this one if you want to be able to turn this whole thing on or off with the key. So now the circuit we're going to use is the one for the most useless device on any motorcycle, the horn. And the horn circuit is this one. Before you plug this in, go ahead and install the automotive fuses into it. So the horn circuit is going to be the one closest to the prongs on this side. So go ahead and plug that back in there. And then the one on this side is going to be our new circuit for our air-fuel ratio gauge. Plug the 5 amp fuse into that one. And then go ahead and plug it into the fuse box. Next, go ahead and install the black wire into the negative on your battery. With the black wire hooked to the negative and the red wire spliced into the wire on the AFR circuit hooked into the fuse box, we are now ready to power on the system. When you turn the key on, it will energize the system. It's heating up the O2 sensor now. Once the O2 sensor is heated, you're ready to start the motorcycle. You are now ready to start the engine. Give it a minute to calm down. It takes a couple of seconds for it to settle down when you cold start, but now that it's warmed up a little bit, you can see it's giving me an accurate reading. I've had my idle set to be about 13.0 to 13.1, which is what we're getting now. So it's held its setting pretty well. And that's it. So now that you have an air-fuel ratio gauge on there, now you can just mount a GoPro to your helmet, go for a ride, record your trip, record what the air-fuel ratio is reading, to what RPMs you're at, to what throttle position you're at, and you can use those three values to build your own Power Commander map. Catch you guys later.